Hey guys, and welcome to another Warframe video. Now this week has not been exactly a normal week for videos I've posted so far, and this is going to continue that trend as we take a look at something that affects me quite a lot in Warframe, and that is colourblindness. The whole purpose of this video is to try and bring attention to this problem, and hopefully provide some ideas for potential fixes to certain problems in the game. Now before we start looking at issues relating to Warframe directly, let's have a general look at colourblindness in general. To start with, I know some people might not really think of colourblindness as such a common issue, especially if they don't suffer from it themselves. But the numbers are as high as 1 in 12 males suffer from some sort of colour deficiency, and something like 1 in 200 females, which when you actually think about it, is an extremely large number of people. Now colourblindness does not necessarily mean that you cannot see colour at all. So let's get that out of the way to start with. There is a whole bunch of different types of colourblindness, and that ranges from slight colour deficiency all the way up to full-on cannot see any colour at all. And I'm not going to go through each and every type of colour deficiency because we would be here for quite some time. Personally, I had a colourblind test about 15 years ago, which said I was 80 to 100% deficient in green, although I still confuse things like reds and oranges, blues and purples, some greys and some greens, that sort of thing. And I'm sure if I went back and got tested again, I'd probably get a more conclusive answer as to the extent of my own colourblindness. Now this can pose a huge problem to companies that strive to make sure they are inclusive to everybody, including those that suffer from a medical condition, which colourblindness does come under, and it's especially prevalent to the video game industry, as a high proportion of their player base is male, which is by far in a way the largest sufferer of the problem. The main problem is making sure the game can be enjoyed to its full extent by those that cannot see colour properly, and this is where the biggest issue lies. The fact that there are so many different types of colour deficiency, too many companies try and solve it with things like a quote-unquote colourblind mode, although some things like Battlefield or World of Tanks only offer one colour combination, which is not helpful at all to those differing types of deficiency. Although more recent games have come up with other ways of dealing with it, such as Armoured Warfare, which you can see on screen now in the screenshot, offers multiple colour options for their game's UI options, and some other games such as War Thunder allow you to manually change things like marker colours to be able to get the most out of the game if you suffer from this. So where does this fit into Warframe? Well, the decisions taken in terms of the way information is portrayed on screen in Warframe haven't been the most colourblind friendly. Things like the mod cards when they were originally introduced, and when they were redone with the new colours, personally I couldn't tell the difference between the rares and the commons. And when pressed on the matter, I was given the answer that the colours of the mods were checked on a website which said it was fine for colourblind people. Now, this is completely the wrong way at looking at things. Unless you're planning on going the whole way with multiple colourblind modes, you will not find a single colour that works for each and every group of people that are colourblind. It's not possible, it just does not work like that. So after those mod cards, there was a lot of argument on the forums on the topic of colourblindness, and the support for those that suffer from it, and how this was the wrong way to look at the solution to the problem. The solution is not attempting to get a single colour that everyone can see. It's about making sure there are visual clues to help those that might not be able to see the colours properly. Now, there are two really obvious ways of actually demonstrating this, which eventually did come from the discussions we were making at the time, which was the dots above the mod cards to say its rarity. You've got 1 for common, 2 for uncommon, 3 for rare and 4 for legendary, and also the different visual look of things like the lockers, from when they are locked to when they are unlocked. This means that instead of trying to decipher the colours or check each locker individually, each and every person, regardless of their type of colourblindness or whether they're colourblind or not, could just look at something and gather the information that they needed straight away. Now, I know that personally I look for visual clues to help me along, or I develop a system for dealing with the colour deficiency. I'll give an example. When I was doing things like art lessons at school, I would ask people what the colours were, and then I would have a specific place for it, like red would be on my left, green would be on my right, and then I would work within that sort of system, and this is pretty much just an extension of that, and I feel it's way more inclusive than trying to find that one magical colour that everyone can see the difference between. Warframe is a fast-paced game that requires a lot of split-second decisions, especially at high level. Having visual clues as well as the coloured ones is definitely something that can help keep it fast-paced for those that otherwise might struggle. Now this doesn't mean that because those few things have changed, i.e. the mods and the lockers, that everything is fine now, because there is still a whole bunch of issues that I personally have found to cause problems in game because of the colour of them, and hopefully I can provide some ideas to alleviate the problem as well as draw attention to some of the problems that I've personally found. Now the first problem I want to talk about is something I alluded to in my carrier video, and that is one of the main reasons that I use carrier, and that is the ammo drop colours. Now, this might seem like a very minor problem, but it becomes more than that if you're working with other sentinels other than one that grabs ammo for you all the time. Part of the problem is the size of them, combined with the colours. Personally, I have no hope of identifying them from distance, which makes ammo collection without carrier ridiculously difficult, to the extent where I will run over the same ammo multiple times when it's not actually the one that I need. Now, one way to fix this, which would actually be pretty cool, was actually suggested by Cats which is in the comments of my carrier video, which is to have a toggleable indicator over the top of the ammo box, like a holographic version of the ammo it represents, like maybe a Bratton, Leighton, Paris Vectis and a Strun. The reason I suggest making it toggleable is so that those that really struggle with identifying these tiny little boxes may turn it on to help them, and those that don't like it at all and think it, gets in the way can turn it off again. Now the one problem I can see with this is having far too many markers all over the place. For example, playing with a greedy mag, grouping up all the ammo, then the markers maybe could merge into one single marker saying what's in that pile, rather than an individual marker per ammo box. Once again though, this is one of those visual indicators being worth more than trying to tailor colours around trying to help people see. And honestly, I don't think it would be a too unreasonable thing to request, but would allow much easier use of other companions other than the carrier. Secondly is the mini-map during exterminate missions. Now I can hear people going, well that's oddly specific, isn't it? And yes, it is very specific, because that's one thing that exterminate does where the other game modes don't, is that the room goes red on the map if there's still enemies in there. Now, while that doesn't seem much of a problem, does it? Well, the marker for enemies in Exterminate is a red dot on a red map. Now, it's not too difficult if there are elevation changes, because there's a little white arrow that appears to help work out where they are. But if you're on the same level as them, or if you're running loot detector and there's a whole load of white boxes everywhere, it makes it ridiculously difficult to see. Now, to be honest, I don't really have any ideas to have, to be able to fix this without losing the functionality of finding out there are enemies still in the room. So perhaps if you have any ideas, pop them in the comments below. But this is a genuine problem that I have struggled with for quite some time now. Moving on from that, Grineer doors have been a constant thorn in my side, and only specifically those Grineer ones. The choice of red and white for the void doors causes no problems for me whatsoever, and I would be interested to hear if there's anyone that has problems with those. Plus, while the corpus doors do use red and green to show whether they're open or closed, the locked ones have a red panel to the left of the door, where in general the unlocked ones have either a completely unlit panel or a very brightly lit panel, so it is fairly easy to tell those. The Grineer doors, however, do not have this, and when you take into account the dimly lit areas the Grineer are famed for, it makes for a rather frustrating recipe of the inability to work out whether the doors are unlocked or not, especially at distance. Perhaps the doors could be lit green or white whenever they're open, but completely unlit when they're locked. So at distance you could see, well, that the door is unlit, therefore it's locked. And instead of having to run up to it to work out whether it's locked or not, you can just see from distance. It's a really simple thing to do, but it would make the world of difference to some people. Now, the final major colourblind issue I find in Warframe is rather a huge one, and it's one that affects both Sharkwing and Arkwing for me, and it's part of the reason that I don't often play either of them. I can't see the enemies at all. No, seriously, in the Sharkwing, where the water effects are blurring and making things tough to see, It makes it almost impossible to see any enemies at all for me unless they are right up in my face. They blend into the background so much that I get hugely frustrated trying to find them in amongst the 5,000 things they could be right next to and be completely invisible. The same thing happens with Archwing, but that is more to do with the distance and the fact that they are very far in the distance, so they blend in so much easier. I find I spend 90% of the time searching for enemies flying to points, and while I've got friends or even just random guys in the squad that have no problem seeing them getting to objectives and can hit them from long range, so I'm just sat there not doing anything at all. While this is way less of a problem in the tight confines of like the trench run corpus ships, on the open Grineer exterminates and in the interceptions, I have no chance of seeing them whatsoever before they're right on top of me. It's insanely frustrating, and most of the reasons that I don't go anywhere near Archwing or Sharkwing. Perhaps a better minimap that I know is being worked on might help this, but it might be better to have the enemies marked in some way as they're coming in, and then not have that marker disappear as soon as you aim at them. I don't know, it's a tough one, but in its current state, it's one of the main reasons I don't go anywhere near those game modes, which is a shame because I think they do have potential, but right now it is impossible for me to play properly at all. So I hope you guys have a better idea of how colourblindness in Warframe can be detrimental, especially with some of the systems that are in place right now. And I apologise for how long this video is, but this is a topic that is extremely close to my heart. And it's something that while I campaigned for colourblind changes for quite a long time, I kind of neglected it when I focused on making sure I got the YouTube stuff up and running. And it is something I wish I had not stopped campaigning for. I would love to hear your experiences in the game, especially if you're struggling with colourblindness as well, and what you are struggling with in the comments so I can provide good feedback to the devs. I'm going back to the campaigning path, fighting for colourblind changes. There's no real reason that people have to have less of an experience when there are reasonably simple game design choices that can be made to alleviate the problem. Colourblindness is something that is becoming more recognised by these devs now, with both Glenn and Scott having mentioned it in recent dev streams, but I personally don't think anywhere near enough has been done or talked about in terms of changes. Hopefully this video will help with that a little bit, so as always guys, many thanks for watching and I shall see you in the next video.